Hey, this is Parvin Dabas on the MMA India Show, and welcome back. And today we have with us Rama Reddy from Bangalore. Okay, Rama, so quickly tell us, why should people listen to you?
I've been in India now for a little more than 6 years. Been have my own gym, and I've been working towards making a really strong fight team here in India. And I'm really happy to be here, and it's been good.
And you were a part of Combat Carnival?
Yes. So the most recent project I was a part of was Combat Carnival, which was an events company, and we did tournaments every 5-6 months in kickboxing, boxing, and BJJ.
Okay, so quickly, we're starting a new section, a weekly roundup section with this show today, and we're going to talk about various things which have happened all over the globe and in the country as well. So let's get started. What are we talking about first?
Well, I would love to talk about the UFC on Fox card that just occurred. That was headlined by Anjos and Dos Anjos and Lawler.
Yeah, the most interesting thing in that is, of course, first of all, the fact that Rafael won. You know, not many people were expecting, or it might have been mixed, but Robbie had the size advantage as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know. And I think a lot of people felt RDA might have been a little out of his depth as far as Robbie Lawler goes. But of course, RDA really proved that he was very determined to keep going in the welterweight and aim for another belt. Now, the interesting thing, of course, after the fight was the people who called him out. You know, Colby Covington called him out and Stephen Thompson called him out. Now, of course, when Colby Covington called him out through a tweet, we had somebody representing us at the press conference. Chamatkar Sandhu was there on behalf of MMAindia.com, and he read out the tweet to RDA. He asked him for his reaction to it, and he did say, "Listen, I don't care much about Colby Covington, and what has he done? He hasn't won anything, you know." So, so that story, of course, was carried out, has been carried out throughout the globe, thanks to us and our, and our journalist Chamatkar Sandhu asking the right questions and being on top of things, and people like MMA Fighting, MMA Junkie, BJ Penn have all carried the story. Hopefully next time they'll give us a credit too. But so basically, Covington is still going after RDA now, and the Brazilians. I think he's still trying to create as much noise as possible to get himself the fight. And you never know, it might just work.
I think, yeah. I think now we've entered into this kind of McGregor era fight hyping kind of thing. Like people are kind of trying to make cash grabs. I do think that Covington's going about the wrong way. I think the way he's going about it is tactless and bigoted, and it's not endearing him to fans the way that maybe McGregor has done it.
But we are talking about him.
Yes, we are talking about him, but I think in his case, him saying I deserve a title shot, I think is ridiculous. Like, he has to beat someone in the top 5 for us to really consider that. And I think he understands that too. He's just trying to talk himself into it. And I don't think it's going to work. And on top of that, like all the shitty things he does, like or says, kind of put a bitter taste in everyone's mouth and don't really, endear him. They don't behoove us to want him.
But then again, you want to see people go in and beat him up.
Yeah, but that could be the case. But if that's the case, then the best thing you can how to say this? The worst thing you could possibly do to that guy is just keep him keep him fighting top 10 guys, and then he loses once, and then throw him all the way back down to sub 15 guys and see how he does there again. Because no one wants a champion that sounds like him. But yeah, he is creating conversation around himself.
Yeah. And like I said, we're in India and talking about him, so I think there's something there which is working. Though, of course, I don't agree about, again, saying stuff about other people's countries. But like I said, the whole thing is it's not. One doesn't know how serious it doesn't look like, because we have spoken to him twice before that in interviews, and if he was so bigoted, he wouldn't be talking to us in India as well. And he seems like just a normal guy working MMA and just saying stuff he feels he needs to say to get himself into a position, which doesn't make it right, but that is what it is. So anyway, let's move on to the next one. What's the next point you have?
The welterweight picture generally, thrown for toss, last night or 2 nights ago, depending where you are. And now we have RDA beating Lawler, and we have Ponzinibbio beating Perry. So Ponzinibbio's, he should be fighting someone in the top 5 at this point. Perry kind of has to start over.
I think it should be Ponzinibbio versus Stephen Thompson.
Oh yeah, that'd be great. That'd be a wonderful fight. I think the UFC needs to get back on track to giving fight fans actual fights, and not just necessarily these kind of proto carnival fights.
Yeah. Well, but people love them. I think the problem is, people love these super fights like a GSP versus Michael Bisping, which has nothing at all to do with rankings or weight class. But people are really starting to enjoy these, super fights. Like we have Holm versus Chris Cyborg coming up, which is still somewhere closer to their weight classes, but still a super fight. And people are really starting to enjoy these names, fighting each other. I think.
Yeah, I think there's an emotional draw to it, but I think, for example. Let's take the Tyron Woodley, Damian Maia fight. Damian Maia should have been given more than 7 weeks to prepare for that fight. That's his first welterweight shot in, years.
Yeah, but 7 weeks. 7 weeks is not like 3 weeks.
It's not. It's not. But he lives in Brazil and he goes up to New Jersey for his fight camp so he can get his wrestling in. And I think that could have been the difference, you know what I mean? And, not taking anything away from Woodley. Woodley fought the fight that he should have fought. But I feel like they threw Damian Maia on the bus there just to kind of be like, all right, what's the next fight we can kind of make money on? And, this is backfired before, too, with the Henderson-Bisping thing. That was a dumb fight. It had no title. It had no implications. It was just like a weird emotional draw. Let's see if vengeance occurs. And I think that's
I thought it was wonderful.
Yeah.
I'm all about emotion, and people are about emotion. So Bisping wanted to get that back on Henderson, and he just about managed to, because he could have lost, because Henderson did almost repeat what he did in the first fight.
And what that tells you is that the middleweight picture is a lot less legit than we thought. So I understand.
I think the problem is, we have to remember that anybody can win on their day. So I don't think one fight or a couple of these things would put a question mark on the whole division.
I think there's something you said about consistency, though, and especially with. Dan Henderson, absolute monster, Olympian in 1996. No one can say anything to that guy, but he is pretty one-dimensional. He is, he's the archetypical kind of wrestle boxer, wrestle bomber, if you want to call it that. And he had, 2 things going for him in that fight. And as long as Bisping, kept his head and was wary, he would be okay. He wasn't. I don't remember which round was it where he got knocked down. Was it the first round? He got knocked down twice or something, right?
Yeah.
And so I remember thinking, who else in this division would fall for what Henderson's doing? And I don't think it's many people. You know, like I think I think he was like 14 or 15 or something, top 14 or 15 in the division when he took that fight. And I think that was very accurate. And there's a very steep incline between 5 and 10, 10, 15. So I think that was accurate. I think Bisping almost fell for it. So I was like, man, this is just kind of us trying to revisit 2011 or whatever and see if it all works out. And I do understand, like, some people really want to see it, but I think in terms of pay-per-view buys, that was a complete flop, right?
I don't remember. No. But we're getting off topic now, so let's get back to now, this week. What else has happened in this week?
So, featherweight picture. So we have Emmett that just beat a number 3 guy in Ricardo Lamas, which is huge. And he did it emphatically, right? Like, he starched that guy.
But he didn't make weight, though. So he lost 30% of his purse. And I always put a question mark on a fight which has occurred by one guy who hasn't made weight, because he already comes into the fight with an advantage, a very, very strong advantage. 2.5 pounds is a lot when you're coming down to that wire, and it's one guy who had to kill himself a little more to make weight against another guy who, took it a little easier, whatever we want to say, wasn't able to do it, but came into the fight with a very clear advantage, which I feel is not made up just with 30% of the purse.
Yes, and I think he was maybe punished accordingly. 30% is pretty big.
But he still won the fight.
Yeah, he did. I would say, so in this case, we have to kind of look at what a 2-week cut looks like. Usually, like you start, if you're in a camp, last 2 weeks are like just kind of shedding excess water. So like you start your water loading, you start getting rid of salt, and like you just kind of, shrink down. And usually it's quite manageable. Like, you're on weight the morning of. And especially with like a guy like Emmett and and with Lamas, like they wrestle, they understand like what the cyclical nature of this looks like. That those 2.5 pounds could have been quite advantageous, but it kind of depends on what Emmett was doing in the last moment. If he was continuing to try to cut and kind of trying to drain himself, compacting that entire weight cut in those 2 weeks can be really, really draining. So it could have been really damaging, and he could have been like, all right, I'm 2.5 pounds away, but there's no hope of me making this and being even 90% of what I would be tomorrow. So I'll take the 30% hit on my purse, and we'll go ahead and we'll see what happens. But even then, let's say those 2.5 pounds, that kilo, really gave him that edge that he needed to win that fight that emphatically, then yeah, I think he's ready, for top 10, maybe even a top 5 guy in featherweight to see where he really stands. I'd love to see him fight more, especially since that was such a short fight at featherweight. I'd love to see what that cut would actually do to him in a 3-round, 50 minutes of fighting.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I want to see, is like a fight where both guys have made weight. And I think he has offered him, I'm not sure, he has offered him a rematch very soon.
Oh, has he?
I think so, yeah. Which I think is only fair.
So Emmett offered Lamas a rematch.
Yeah.
Oh, that's very gentlemanly of him.
Yeah, I think.
Oh.
So if that happens, I think that's good. So I think these were the two main fights. Of course, we've already spoken about Mike Perry and Santiago. Stephen Thompson, I think, is a great fight. Now, what else has happened in the last week? I think Conor, of course, gave a statement about wanting his next fight to be a real fight, which, everybody's taking it as meaning MMA, which is great because I think he needs to come back and defend, his belt against and everybody wants him to fight either against Tony Ferguson, which is the fight to be made to so-called mix both belts, because Tony Ferguson has a interim belt, and Conor has the belt. So I think that's the fight to make, and and then I think Nate Diaz.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I'm not sure. The only reason, again, Nate Diaz ever comes in the picture is because they both talk trash, and they both have, like a high volume pocket style. So, like, yeah, I mean, if we're going to go that route again, cool. But, I mean, lightweight is a murderer's row. And, like, I like, every one of those guys, like, they could be climbing the ranks and making a dent on the division, or, maybe acquiring that championship. And Ferguson, gosh, what a weird and wonderful man. I love watching that guy fight. So I mean, the unification cannot come soon enough in my mind. And yeah, fans willing, brass willing, we can see another. We can see them complete the trilogy. But I think that's dependent on McGregor beating Ferguson. Otherwise, that kind of loses all of its steam.
Yeah. So, though there's a very big question mark on that, because I think Tony Ferguson is at the top of his game as well right now. So whether he is able to, so McGregor, I think, versus Tony Ferguson is a really good matchup, I think.
Oh yeah, I mean, a must. I mean, and I think fans would want to see it. I'm sure Ferguson wants it. McGregor, we'll see where his motivation lies. What's in his spirit. He's a very, very wealthy man at this point.
Yeah, of course.
So if money was a motivating factor, then that's obviously slightly deflated.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah. So what are we talking about next?
We have middleweight is a bit of a chaotic mess too. I mean, I think GSP vacated on earlier this month. I think it was on the 10th or something. So I mean, I think a lot of people predicted it, including Luke Rockhold, if I remember correctly. It's like, why would he fight us? Like, we're way bigger than him.
Yeah.
We could really put a hurt on him, and it wouldn't really serve his longevity if he was really looking to make a comeback. So he vacated as predicted. So now we kind of need to clear that up. And that's an amazing division to look at now. I think in the next year, that can be tossed up too. So
yeah. I think Rockhold versus Whittaker is going to be a really good fight to see at 221 in Perth.
Oh yeah. Oh man. Yeah, I'm so looking forward to that. Is that in? That's not the January card. Is it the February card?
It's in Jan or Feb. It's Feb.
Yeah, February. Okay. Yeah, I remember there's a January 20th card that's with Miocic and Ngannou, right?
Yeah.
And Cormier and another guy, Ozdemir. So yeah, I mean, I'm really, really looking forward to that fight. I think Whittaker is the next big thing, and he's small for his division too. I'm wondering if it's possible for him to maybe make welterweight one day. But yeah, he is just a delight to watch. And against Rockhold, obviously Rockhold is just such a wonderful technician, and keeps such an even pacing that I really like watching him. He's he's going to be good in the third, fourth, and fifth rounds.
Yeah.
So yeah, really looking forward to what that looks like. And is that going to be for the interim belt, or is that going to be for the vacated belt?
That's for the vacated belt now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's great. I think that makes totally legitimate sense.
Yeah. And coming back to McGregor, there was this big controversy about him being with singer Rita Ora, which I found quite entertaining and interesting. But good to him and both Rita. They're very at the top of their marketing game. And, it showed that he's still having fun, but he needs to come back and get a fight now. And I think he has started, like I said, he has said an MMA fight will be his next, and I think he's started training towards that already. So, yeah.
So he's just hanging out with pop stars now? Is that his thing?
Well, that I don't know, but that was in the news.
Oh, okay. Just are they a thing, or is it just...
Not at all.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just So okay, cool. Well, I hope he decides to come back to fighting, and if he doesn't, I hope he likes hanging out with Rita Ora. That's great.
Well, I don't think he's going to be hanging out with Rita Ora anymore, but so
I mean the whole thing is
I
think the whole thing is like indicative of kind of like this McGregor era thing, where like we have all these vacancies, we have these cash grab fights, we have like all these sidelined killers that are waiting a year, or in like Ferguson's case, like years to fight for the belt. And then we have like situations like Demian Maia's where he's like hasted, he's like kind of funneled into a fight that, given more time, I think would have been closer and better.
I don't really agree with that. 7 weeks is a long time. I don't think there's any excuse to fight on 7 weeks.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think saying 7 weeks and then being able to be like, hey, I'm going to spend instead I'm going to have a 12-week camp. I'm going to spend 6 of those weeks training with my guy in Jersey.
Yeah, but he had been asking for that fight for some time.
Yeah, but I think like dropping it, like there's no one else that gets dropped on like that. You know what I mean?
7 weeks is not a drop. Nate Diaz beat Conor McGregor in 3 weeks. He was sitting in Mexico downing tequilas when he got the call, and he agreed to it, and he beat McGregor
at 170.
Whatever the weight.
I think
that was fair for both of them. Conor McGregor agreed, and it was a fair. That's their walk around weight anyway. I would say that Conor McGregor's walk around weight as well. They were both the same weight, so I don't think there's anything that could be complained about. Like I said, 7 weeks. People have fought on less time and won. So I don't think 7 weeks for a guy who's been fighting. He's been he's not coming out of the blue like a GSP. He's been regular. He's been fighting. He's been winning. So he's been through fight camps. His body's ready. So when opportunity comes, it comes. And 7 weeks, I don't personally think is too less of a time for them to say it was only 7 weeks.
I think the adjustments that Maia had to make would have been like micro adjustments. Like, I mean, it would have been things like, like how do I get like a deep underhook off a half guard to make sure that I can hold on to the heel and kind of like keep the attack going from a flank instead of kind of going forward. And I think those are the kind of micro adjustments that occur over weeks of a camp, not when you're trying to taper down for the weight, not when you're trying to cycle up and super compensate because you work so hard.
What I'm saying is he had been calling out Tyrone Woodley for quite some time. He knew he was going to get the call up. It's not whether he would, it was only a matter of when. So in his mind and with his club, he would have been training for Tyrone Woodley for some time before that. So all of these things that you're talking about, I'm sure they were already talking about it because he was the one. It's not like somebody else dropped out and said, out of the blue, why don't you come? Demian Maia had been campaigning for a fight with Tyrone Woodley for some time.
True, very true. I would say, though, that there wasn't a precedent to kind of drop someone like that. I mean, I would say, especially for a guy like Maia, even though he's petitioning for the fight, he's expecting it to happen a few months down the line. Now, the UFC creates this card and they're saying, we need a headliner. Okay, let's throw you two in. That's kind of how it was formulated. And to me, that's fine. You can say 7 weeks is enough time, but you know how it is. Like, even like, if you want to go to Goa next week, you're not going to book the flight the day before, right? Like, you want...
Most of the time I do. I actually do it a couple of days before because I don't know what I'm doing. I never plan ahead, so that's a different case.
Like, what I do is I go on Google Flights, and then I, take like, half an hour or 45 minutes to kind of look through my options, make sure I can line up my ride when I'm there, make sure my friends are still there when I'm there. And like, there's always this planning involved, and obviously a camp that's centered around you is a lot more logistics. And, obviously, he's a great fighter. He's been taking guys down in all his fights. and choking many of them.
Yeah, exactly.
So like, yeah, I understand that does have, you could say that that's his nervous system, it's in his blood. But yeah, I mean, I just thought, like, for a guy like Maya, who's probably realistically not going to get another chance, giving him 7 weeks and being like, well, hope that works, hope that works out for you, is a little bit like, I'm not going to say underhanded, but it's kind of like...
We'll just agree to disagree and move on right now.
Yeah, we'll agree to disagree.
Let's talk about the... Sorry, what were you saying?
I'm going to say Maya is a hero of mine, so like I'm always going to kind of lean towards him. But go ahead, yes.
So there is an emotional investment in this, like a lot of fans have emotional investments in other fights.
Oh, I see what you're doing. It's for me. You're trying to say like, oh, remember this emotional thing, and you said don't be emotional. I would say yes, but I think there's also an ethical concern here. If it was any other fighter in the same position and he wasn't as cool as Damian Maia, I would still say, give him a little more than 7 weeks to get his camp.
Anyway, that fight was long gone, and this is supposed to be a weekly roundup. So let's talk about something more recent.
We'll potentially edit this out.
Yeah. So now coming to the Indian scene, there's quite a lot of local promotions happening on the Indian scene.
Yeah.
The Mizoram Fight League, I think, just had its second season. The Telangana Fight League is happening, and there is a local promotion in Mumbai called the Malad Masti, which is happening every Sunday in December, which has been happening, which is great. All of these smaller promotions will really help, build, the MMA momentum in the country. And there was another promotion which was supposed to happen in December, the Extreme Fighting Championship. That's now postponed to either Jan or Feb. So there is a momentum building. Of course, Bharat Khandare was in the UFC, and there is a momentum building. And we know that there are quite a few big promotions which are eyeing India. So we know, that media and the talk will help a lot of these smaller promotions, and the smaller promotions help in building ground support for the bigger promotions.
Yes, very true. As long as there's a very active circuit for local fighters, they can gain experience and they can become better and move on. Likewise, we can kind of filter the bottom of the pyramid, so to speak, and get really the elites of India. I remember you were speaking about ranking Indian fighters, and I think that's a great initiative.
In fact, we're releasing the ranking today for one of the weight classes.
Oh,
yeah. We're going to release it.
Which weight class?
I forgot. I think it's either lightweight or bantamweight.
Okay.
One of the two, yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, we need stuff like this. We need very consistent competition to say who's the best and where are they coming from and who they fought to make sure that we can match everything up. And yeah, great. I think so. I remember we were talking about this earlier. Mizoram has a fighting league. I think it's called Jesselton Fighting League. I could be wrong, but I believe it's called JFL. So there's Mizoram, there's Telangana league that you're talking about now, and Malad Masti.
Yeah.
But you were telling me Malad Masti is like a generalized festival, and they have music and food and all that stuff too.
No. I never said that. It's basically it's an amateur because it's not in a cage.
Okay.
It's like a boxing ring, but it is MMA rules.
Okay.
And with the shin guards.
Well, okay, so like proper amateur rules.
Yeah.
So probably like 3-minute rounds. That's great. I noticed also that like with at least with Kolkata and with Mizoram, they're doing a league format where they have teams very similar to SFL, where they have teams kind of fighting over the course of a few matches, a few bouts. And I would say that if we have more time to stretch things out, unlike SFL is like, very compact, right? Everything's happening in 8 or 10 weeks. if we have more time to stretch things out, I think that's much better. Regional team formats they're more sustainable, they're safer. So I look forward to it. Like if they're going to pursue regional team formats, I really look forward to it. I look forward to seeing each region kind of having its own thing, and us coming up with a regional and national ranking. It's a good time.
Great. So let's call that a day for today. And that was the news for this week and what's been happening. And the MMA India show was at UFC Winnipeg. MMAindia.com was represented by Chamatkar Sandhu, and we brought to you all the events live. We brought to you the weigh-ins live. We brought you the ceremonial weigh-ins live. We brought you the media scrum interviews live, and the post-fight conference, the post-fight interviews, the post-fight press conference. Everything we brought you live. So that is MMAindia.com and the MMA India show for you, and keep tuned in for a lot more stuff, interesting, exciting stuff. This is Parvin Dabas, and that's Rama Reddy. We will be back soon.
Thanks, guys. Thank you, Parvin.
Cheers. Take care.